Recording.
Yeah.
So as I was saying, something that became very also tactile and graphic, there is this idea of reciprocity from different landscapes because they are interconnected. So I felt that this batch of rainforest over there was facing, let's say, the west or whatever is being done by capitalism or I don't know, deforestation and climate change, because
Yes.
it's also feeling the effects. And this area in South Brazil also lately had gone through a lot of extreme weather, and this was also the case just before I arrived there. They had like they had first a big drought, and then after they had floods, and then there was this kind of, it came down, and then I arrived, and then there was this beautiful weather. I was there, was like perfect, beautiful landscape, nature. Oh my God, so beautiful. And then right after that, the weather also changed very fast. And recently, also there was a big flood there. Like even where my brother lives in that area, his house was like
Oh yeah, I
lost
remember.
halfway, and those were conditions that were not common in the past because none of the people that lived there for many years, like the elderly, they had never seen stuff like
Yeah.
that.
It's climate change.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so you start to see this difference on the weather and how this also interfere with this locality, because it also impoverish a lot of things because people lose resources that take them
Yeah.
years to accumulate.
Uh-huh.
And you see this in the infrastructure of the cities, and you see also in how there are no really plans of what to do. And then
Mm-hmm.
there are different things that will come up, even that there are even inside of these communities there are people that are more exposed to damage or to life-threatening situations with landslides or the flood, or that's mostly people that have reduced mobility or elderly
Yeah.
people, that you cannot really run away. Or
Yeah.
so I think those things will become sadly more
Yeah.
apparent.
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
uh, and while I was there, this was very impressive for me that as this place actually wanted me to be there and to have this experience. And it was also very clear how that place. I wrote in one of the rocks like, "This place know about you," and this you is
Mm-hmm.
not just me; it's this you, like you,
Uh-huh.
Mariana, in Portugal.
Yes.
This rock is still feeling
Yeah.
what
Mm-hmm.
is going on. So and I think you know most of us, we live lives that in cities, and we do jobs that restrict our awareness and our
Yeah.
presence in the world and in our embodiment of
Totally.
the world, also of being in our bodies. Because
Mm-hmm.
most of us, we remember we have a body just when we are sick or when we are in pain, or
Yes.
so this also makes that we establish different relationships to our landscape. And some of these relationships, they are more um, uh, let's say fleeting, in terms that they are just in terms of use, is used
Mm-hmm.
or not, or you can discard, or you
Yeah.
don't care about the place or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
And I think once you start to get to know uh, landscapes, and you start to learn different skills that landscapes
Mm-hmm.
propose to you to learn,
Yep.
we establish different relationship. Like if
Exactly.
someone surfs, the way it relates to the ocean,
Yep.
to wind, to
Uh-huh.
weather conditions, is completely different.
Of
and
course.
and, and it's a whole philosophical way of engaging with environment. Or
Yes.
if you
Yes.
learn how to sail also,
Mm-hmm.
or if you know a bit, you don't need to be professional or anything, but like
Yeah.
climb, with your
Uh-huh.
relationship to height and rock,
Yeah.
or even hiking or
Yeah.
bike,
Yeah.
swimming,
Mm-hmm.
whatever is possible, like in
Yeah.
terms of engagement of the body in a open space.
Mm-hmm.
It really established different ways of relationship, and also I think it gives social vocabulary. So you
Yeah.
become,
Yeah. Totally. Totally.
yeah, you become more versed somehow, more like
Mm-hmm.
more vocabulary in order to deal with people.
Yeah. Yeah. It
So
seems
yeah.
to me also like from your story, this very beautiful experience you've had there, that somehow you were in collaboration with the environment. Like the environment was allowing you to be there. It provided you a nice experience. Like you didn't have any scary thing, no accidents. Like you were there with I think such good intentions that for sure this is like a reciprocal thing, and that you were in collaboration, because obviously you had to drink the water from the river that was allowing you to be having that, and you were sharing it with all those other animals and plants there. And then because if you were not consuming the environment, you were sharing it with everything else that was there. And I think with a lot of the experiences that some people have when they go, for instance, camping, or not everybody, of course, but like in general, even our idea of going into nature nowadays, it's a bit like, okay, I'm gonna go there to do this, and I'm gonna go, you're never put in these places where you humble yourself into a place that you need to be almost in this survival mode, because in a way you were, but you were not, because you brought provisions, and you were not gonna
it was not
just everything that was there. But
this is also a bit the idea that nature is a place that we need to survive. Most of us, we're not gonna go through survival.
No, we will die. I know.
Like and also, how I was there was also not really.
No, I know. I know it
was really let's say, was really controlled. Like
no, I know.
it was not that I went to Antarctica, or I'm not this type of explorer.
Yeah,
I
no,
don't
there
have
are
the
people.
technical knowledge.
I know. That's why I know that. And I know there's people who do it. But I'm just saying that in a way, you kind of went into a place like just to be in that place. You know what I mean? Like, and to open yourself to that place, which is not so common. Because a lot of times we go to places even with this idea of like just going into nature. I'm gonna go and I want to travel around the place, or walk or hike or whatever, or do some what you call climbing or whatever. But I think you went just to be, and I think this is very interesting. Like also as an artist, and now in the last part of this conversation, I would just like you to talk a little bit about how this informs your practice now in your nowadays, because this was like almost a year ago, right?
It was in March this year, but
okay.
What had happened?
Well, yeah, a lot of things happened this year. It's been very, very full of stuff. But and I know you've had other situations as well that involve nature, but we don't have time to go through all of that now. But the way you work, like as an artist, as a dancer, and also as a creator, and the way you relate to nature is very special. And I think it would be nice just to see how if you brought something with you now, since if it has changed you, if this experience changed you somehow, and I'm sure it has, but like if you could point out some things now that you brought into your daily life in Berlin or wherever you've been.
No, it definitely informed me a lot, and it gave a lot of input, and then also moved further, like some of my research about the visual field and so on. And then also later, because of it, I start to look for different authors, and I end up also finding people I mean, it's a psychologist that it's kind of known, but I didn't knew before, that is James Gibson, that he had written a book. His last book that he wrote in 1979 is called An Ecological Approach to Visual Perception. And that was something that had influenced me somehow later in a different stage, when I went also again for 3 weeks in isolation in Spain. Another story for another time. Another story. But like that was a kind of a continuation of this idea of reciprocity with environments, and something that I believe on, that also our bodies or our nervous system is a continuation.
Exactly.
Environment is a continuation of is an extension, a continuation of our own bodies.
Exactly.
So for this idea of cooperation with the landscape, it's important to me, because like I said earlier, I do believe that it remembers with you, it feels with you, and it thinks with you. So because there are places you like to enter, places you don't like, you feel discomfort, or you remember this, or you remember that, suddenly a memory comes up, or you had an idea, or like, and has, for me, there is a lot to do with environment. And also later I also became more interested in navigation and orientation, also because of the relationship with the eyesight. And more I've been trying to now like articulate more the difference between eyesight and vision, because I think that there is a difference. Yeah, because I feel that eyesight is maybe my way of perceiving is more technical. It's like eyes, brain, and it's like the thing how like the visual like how we capture photon particles and then we synthesize that in stimulus that later will become what we see. And then vision as something much more embodied that demands the whole organism. And then this is also borrowed later. I realized that James Gibson had wrote this in 1979, and I was like, oh my God, it really gave me words for some of the things I was feeling. Like that there is this idea that we have a brain and eyes that are embodying a body that is in relationship to the land. And then the horizontal lines of the body are super important for orientation with the horizontal planes of the earth. So I feel that there is this idea now that I still bring with me that visual experience is a continuation of a lot of sensorial inputs, that they are not only eyesight related. I mean, and I still feel that in the case of the research I do and what I'm interested, vision is super beautiful. Eye care is super important because more than half of the cases of visual impairment and blindness could be prevented if people would have access to good eye care. And this is a lot of people, because I think the last report I read from the World Health Organization is like over 2 billion people in the world suffer with visual impairment or blindness. And really half of it is like more than 1 billion people could have been prevented this visual impairment or blindness with adequate care. And is an important and is an important sense, like because it's so immediate and because of the way evolutionarily had changed the ecology of the planet. Also, some scientists really believe that it was something that put it pressure in evolution. So as soon as photoreceptors were developed in the first cells or something, because it gave like also a chance for a guided predation and also to run away from things. So it has a relationship to safety, immediate. So a lot of things start to have eyes suddenly in a short span of time evolution. So there is this continuation, I think. And I think I'm still like into all of this mass, and some days are easier than others because it's also a subject that's close to me.
Of course,
But definitely this relationship with environment, it's something that will continue. Also, like when I think about the eyes, they developed inside of salty water. And the composition of salty water and the sea, it's very similar to the composition of our bodies. And also there is saline material in our orbit, so it's still like this memory of the ocean on us. Like, so of course, and also in a poetic sense, you can always carry a lot of this material together. And it's definitely something. I mean, I like living in cities because I think they are also human-made environments, and we should also look at them with a little care. Not just like,
of course,
nature is this and
no, we
cities
should
that.
integrate.
So,
we should integrate. I think, of course, have reservations for the wild to be preserved as well, but also integrate more the forest.
Because I like to go to the outdoors, but I understand how difficult it is. Also, like I've been in forest just for 8 days. And the demands for my body, and I'm healthy and young.
Of course, it's very strong experience. I think we just
then
learned
also
from
when and also when I was in these 3 weeks isolation in Spain, that was a bit different circumstance, but I was also very close to the land. It was also completely different, and I also start to realize a lot of these skills I kind of don't have in order to be able to really
Yeah.
wild camp, or to really like,
Of course.
you know, I learn a lot through exposing myself, like, let's say, homeopathically to it.
Yes, yes, yes.
But you know, there is always a lot of things you could learn
Yeah.
about how to orient yourself, how, what can you eat, what you can't
Yeah,
eat,
yeah.
or how
It's
even the state of the body, how to take
of
care
course,
of
because
your
it
own
seems to
kind
me
of
like
stuff.
we lost a lot of this. I don't know when exactly, back a few centuries or even more. We lost a lot of this connection, and we lost a lot of the skills that maybe we once had as human beings. You know, I believe that we had this more connected somehow, and now I believe that for us as artists, and these experiences that we may have in ourselves, and the way we can share it with others, and maybe provide little environments to create experiences like this for other people, might be a way to kind of start to open up a little bit of the tenderness, or or the care for nature, because a lot of us have this separation. And I think I don't feel also, if I wouldn't be able, I think, to be 8 days like you were in that environment. I don't know if I would be
The thing is that
psychologically prepared.
even the skills we have nowadays that are different, let's say even the academic skills or whatever,
Sure, sure.
they came from this wonder and of the
Exactly.
body into this, the landscape. It's like this
It's
was,
knowledge from the
you know, like
accumulated
it's a
knowledge.
lot of philosophers, they love walking, for
Yeah.
example, or I don't know, like, so there is something that it's built very close from the body, and the mind is also very close to this environment.
Yeah.
The body wants to thrive in this landscape, also because if you are scared or if you have reflexes, is your body trying to keep itself integrated, to keep itself alive, because it likes to be here and likes to have a good time, you know, like, so.
But I'm just thinking as well, like, for instance, in some countries you have, I think mostly in the north of Europe, you have a lot of schools that for children start to be in nature, for have experiences in the forest from a very young age. And that's very interesting, I think very skillful, like to know the herbs, to know what's poisonous, what's not, and to have a connection to nature that allows also for its protection. Because what happens for people who don't have this relationship is that you think it's something so far away from you that you wouldn't even feel so bad when you think of deforestation or whatever. It feels like it's something that it's not happening to you. And then I feel like we're all suffering from the climate change and from all these atrocities that are happening, and then all the wars, everything, all this destruction is happening, and we feel so frustrated because we can't. It seems like we can't do anything. But I think a lot of young people now are wanting to, they're defending more some of these things about climate change, especially, but I think it's something is lacking between just the concept of it and the experience. And I think we need to bridge this more, and we have to have this have some more experiences with wild somehow, and not in a safari way, not as a spectator, or not going to the zoo. This is for me not good at all. But to just put yourself in have and this is connected for me to mental health as well, like what you went through somehow. It's very interesting because it's almost like a healing situation, to go and put yourself alone in the middle of nowhere, let's say, or a place that you don't have any reach. It's not easy for you to just give up. You couldn't give up, like you couldn't go in the middle of the night and say, oh, I'm going home now. Like, you can't, because you would have a lot of
I mean, I would need to walk 2 hours at least, if not more. I could go.
No, I know, but you see, this is something that is quite, of course, there's other ways to do this in less, let's say, less risky forests even. At least I'm thinking about the Portuguese context or whatever, but I just feel it's very important for people to have these connections. Like, and your story is very, very inspiring, really very inspiring also, because like you said, you're healthy, you're young still, but you still had a lot of issues to deal with, like anybody would have those risks, like, and if you were not able
but
to.
Also, even for me, sometimes was this thing of how much I didn't knew. Like, I would see animals that
you don't know what they
are.
are.
I don't know how they live, how this
Exactly.
waterfall survive, where it comes from, what. So it means that there was a lot of how is it, worms at some point, or it's worms in English? I don't know.
Worms.
Yeah, or and so maybe now is not the season of these worms, but it's good because some of them are poisonous. So if I'm there in the season before, maybe it's a bit, like.
No, and of course, there's also the problem. I mean, there's a lot of indigenous people still, I hope, living in these lands. I'm not sure about the Atlantic forest in itself, but of course, I know of people and friends of mine that had experiences with indigenous people, that they were, they were there, but they were guided and they were kind of more protected because they had the people, a bit like you had your brother in the first day, like to tell you where.
Very helpful.
Very helpful and maybe super necessary. And of course, I also don't think it's something that people should strive to do this, like just to have an experience for having an experience, but it's just very beautiful.
Different sets of skills. Like for example, my brother has one of his friends that grew up in this landscape, like he born there and he lives the middle. So he, for example, he is the guy that opened the paths for my brother in the forest. Like I was not just going to the woods, I would walk in the paths that were there. That they were more used, and then most of the time I would walk through the river because it was safer. So I would walk up or down the river through the day and not really through the woods because you have more chance to just get lost,
get
disorientated, and then it can be very complicated then, especially if there is no means that you can find yourself because you are underneath the canopy. And how do I know directions? I don't really know how, like at that point I didn't know much about
you didn't have reference points.
Wayfinding and all of these things, so it could be problematic. But then like this guy, for example, he would open and he's like, oh no, you can come back through here, you see, we passed through there, and you look back and you just see green. You don't see the difference, but this person can see all this little difference of trees and where it's breaking the thing.
Of course,
so it kind of, it's like walking on a street. So this is also what is nice. We get used to things and we can learn these skills.
Exactly. Also.
And again, I think it's also very important to put this, that going to nature doesn't mean that you need to survive it, and it's important to go and to be close to it, even if it's just for a walk.
Exactly.
If you can, or like that. So we should not try to nature as something scary, because again, most of us, we are not explorers.
Exactly. No, for sure.
Everest or
Antarctica
or Greenland. I don't know, like like we're not gonna go to these extreme conditions somehow. That I'm sure they're pretty amazing, but you need to know a lot and have a lot of.
And it's very dangerous. That's why. That's why I think your experience was so, in a way, radical, because it's like you were not in a total survival thing, but it was pretty risky, and this is why it was so beautiful in a way, like that you managed to have this experience, and also the way you already relate to nature. This information that you passed after you came from there, all the talks we've had before about this, like really inspired me, and I think they kind of show a lot of. I see it like it's a lot of attention to the environment, a lot of care for the environment, a lot of respect for it, and that you can transpose that also to the city environment, like you were saying, to other people, to the people you don't know, like to the risks that you might have in the forest of the city also, but not be afraid of it, and so that you can be more open to life in its
it's like we get used to different things. Like people that live in big cities, they really know how to navigate those cities.
Exactly. It's another kind of forest.
For example, I have some cities that I understand the public transport, that I don't need to look in the map. I'm like, I know how to navigate. And like, for example, when my brother came the first time to Berlin to visit me, he was feeling completely alien. He was difficult for him
of course
to get it, and and then meanwhile he's in the forest, he's completely fine with it, and I'm like, they're gonna die at any moment.
Of course. And I think the beautiful thing about this is also how can we find more balance, because I think the answer to all these scary problems like that we're facing in this era is I think about also getting more balance, because we can't change a lot of the things that have been done already, but we can kind of soothe the wound, let's say, or reconnect, rewild. So this is something that I feel we can do in our own in interior environment, in our psyche also, because like you said, I think it's we're very connected to our environment, and nature is an extension of ourselves, as is the city, because it's also nature in another form, because you know,
I mean, nature was also invented as a concept.
Exactly, that's the thing. And this is the separation, it's the problem, I think, in a way, and it's so hard for us to,
I mean, it's understandable, this thing to try to understand something or to study something that you try to see side and
because you
dissociate from it, but
in the cities, like when you see the trees, like most cities have trees still, and that's good, but you see that you have the cement, you know, the pavement and all that. And sometimes I like to do this exercise of just seeing it without the pavement and just seeing the forest that is there still, because there is, you know, forest, normally it's I would say it's like a few trees together that have space for other beings to live also there. And I feel some of our parks in a lot of cities are small forests as well, you know. So this is also something we need to deconstruct in a way, perhaps and I know there's a lot of like, how do you say, like these architects in cities now, they are trying to bring back more grass and you know, more wild, you know, instead of having the clean cut lawns like that were so bad for biodiversity. Now, at least for instance in Lisbon, we're seeing that how do you say it, the landscape architects are introducing this more wild
because those things influence on the human development, like pattern development, in visual development, like in the eye field.
Exactly.
So it influences quality of life of people, and also their mental health, and even the way that they are wired somehow. And so it's good that some places are being, let's say, cultivated in a more sensorial way.
Yeah, I think there is a little change I can feel there, but then of course you have a lot of economic interests that are holding that back as well. So this is a struggle, but I can feel it already, that there's like in some places there's still the kind of old-fashioned, you know, very clean, neat. We don't want to see any bugs. We don't want to see any wildflowers. This comes from an older way of thinking, of controlling the nature, you know, of the gardening and everything, like very proper and square. And I think this is not really helping the biodiversity. And the same thing with insects, like you were saying, in there you were full of wasps or butterflies, or I can imagine also mosquitoes and all that. And this is so,
with mosquitoes there was a time for it also. It's not for the whole day.
But
they
it's
have
important.
8 o'clock, you can follow through the day.
Because they are annoying. Of course we don't want to be bitten by mosquitoes, but at the same time the lack of insects shows that it's actually a really bad sign for the environment. And I think we need to continue raising awareness through this. And of course also, like you were saying, if you are at home, even in the city, and a wasp comes in, why don't kill it? Just allow it, you know, deal with it, allow it to go out. But you know, this perception of like we are sharing these spaces, even in the cities, we have to share our space with other bugs and other animals, like, and this is something I think we need to keep changing, and you know, bridging more these two environments together somehow. And your story is very, very inspiring, and maybe we will invite you for another talk for the Spain experience.
Let's see if I find myself
we're running
in trouble again.
Yes. So thank you so much, Marcio. We're running out of time now.
Yes.
And yes, keep going with your beautiful work and experiences, and we will come back to you, I'm sure, soon. And
thank you for the invitation. This was fun.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming. And we come back soon with more talks with different people, different guests with this same topic. Bye-bye.